Thanks, Sam, and good afternoon, everyone, and welcome. Today we're going to be talking about business accounts and kind of notching it up a little bit. We'll certainly do some fundamentals because we're going to have to set that framework that we all can work from. But I'd like to talk about some of those interesting questions that we get in the office and some situations that you guys may be dealing with on a day-to-day basis. So before we delve into business accounts itself, I'd like to talk a little bit about your customer identification program. When you sat down and wrote your CIP, or your BSA officer wrote your CIP, you defined what a customer was for your financial institution. So we certainly know the business who's the owner is the customer under CIP. The regulation also permitted, and you guys, many of you chose to say that a signatory is a customer. So if you chose just the business and define customer as being the business, then you're going to run CIP on just the business. But if you said we're going to identify the business and all signatories, then you're in the position of having to run CIP on all of the signers on the accounts also. So that kind of is one of those numbers games, like how many times can I get written up for BSA? If you only named the business as your customer, you can only get written up once. If you said the business and all four signers, if there's four, then you would have a potential CIP violation for 5 different instances, including the customers. Just remember, so that, that brings food for thought. Should we just identify people but not put them in CIP? Or should we leave it the way it is in CIP, both the business and the signatories? And talk about a big debate around the country about that issue. And we can talk more about that as we go through, and I give you some examples. The definition of customer in the regulation does not include financial institutions. So if a credit union goes in to open an account at a bank, or if a bank goes in to open an account at a credit union or another bank, they are not required, they are exempt, I guess is a better way, to be run through CIP. And of course that doesn't mean you don't want to ID the person standing in front of you and don't want to get some paperwork, but they are not required to be run through full customer ID program. Also, Phase 1 exemptions on CTRs are also exempt from CIP except for the subsidiaries, government entities, financial institution, companies traded on the New York Stock Exchange and the American Stock Exchange, just not their subsidiaries, are exempt from CIP. And any existing customer that you had on the books before 10/1 of 2003 is also exempt, assuming that you put that in your policy. Now, that doesn't mean when the business comes in to update their records, if they've been with you 75 years, that you don't do due diligence. Due diligence is the harder part about business accounts. It is certainly the more delicate part about business accounts, and it's certainly the part that's getting ready to be regulated. We're all sitting on pins and needles, kind of waiting for those CDD regulations to drop on BSA. Because at this point, customer due diligence is only in the exam manual, but it's not in the regulation itself. So we go by the exam manual to ask purpose, source, beneficial owners, and things like that on businesses, which can be very important also. So when the regulation finalized, the CIP regulation we're talking about, signatories were deleted, and you only had to ID the business, yet many of you continue to do so. So when building your documentation, remember that in your customer conversations or in things like that, you don't want to get in violation of your own policy. You can't say, oh, well, don't worry about them, we know them. You can't pull stuff like that. Those days are long gone. But I remember them. I've been in the business long enough to remember when knowing your customer was enough, but now we've got to know them on paper. So this brings up one, I think, difficult issue and in this business arena. If you run full CIP on the business and all your signers, the question then gets to be, if you run credit reports or telecheck or check systems or Equifax or any of those kind of things, then what if one of the signatories on that corporation fails the test? Then what do? And, of course, you can't tell the business why this person can't sign on the account, so you end up in kind of a privacy issue. So in some cases, it may be that you want to relook at these business CIPs And especially when the corporation is going to be responsible anyway for the business, you may want to relook at them and rewrite them so that the signatories don't have to pass Equifax or Telecheck or any of those kind of records, or that an officer can waive that piece. So that's some of the things that come up there, and those get to be kind of privacy issues also when it comes for CIP. So on your business account profiles that many of you use, that includes the section on money service businesses and unlawful internet gambling. When you set up the account, you may want to say new, existing, or exempt to cover those folks who might be exempt. And then, of course, you can run a kind of hybrid on business accounts if you would write your policy that way. I was at a bank the other day in Louisiana, and they're mid-sized financial institution, and they're kind of running a hybrid. What they do is they run full CIP on the business, documentary, non-documentary verification, all of that, but they only run name, address, date of birth, and social on the signer. So that's kind of interesting that they do that, and I don't know how that will stand up when the new due diligence rules drop, but it is certainly a way to maybe sidestep that delicate issue. And we'll certainly be interested to hear what some of you guys have to say about it today in your own scenarios, because I think that's become a privacy issue in so many ways. You know, how did we wrote our CIP in 2003, and does it make sense today? Or do we need to rethink that? And that's kind of where we are. And should we rethink it before the new due diligence rules come out, or should we wait and then overhaul everything at one time? Seems that might make more sense to do it that way. But that's up to your financial institution. So it's all about, as I always say, when we open business accounts and we trail the authority. I was looking at an LLC the other day for a bank, and it was 4 tiers deep before you found who the owner of the business was. Is this LLC's managing member is this LLC, whose managing member is this LLC, whose managing member is this LLC, till you finally get to the guy that owns all of these. It is always like building these kind of breadcrumb trails of authority to make sure that we know who we're doing business with, and whether they have the right and the authority to open the account and then to deposit checks. To me, those things kind of go together. So what we're going to be looking for and talking about today as we get into these advanced issues, and I know you're going to probably have a lot of questions, and you want to start typing those in to Sam, because he'll be building them for me for the breaks. But we definitely are going for this philosophy of outside government documents and agreements and business agreements, partnership agreements, operating agreements, setting up the resolution, which sets up then the signature card and the authority to transact things. Now, the question gets to be is, what does the resolution set up? Does it set up electronic banking agreements? And the answer is typically not today's resolution. Do we get more than one resolution per company? Do we get one resolution per deposit account, or do we go like the lending side and get one resolution for 20 loans? Those kind of things certainly vary from financial institution to financial institution, although I still think it's quite common today for the resolution to be one resolution per one deposit account, where it's very different on the lending side, where they'll get one resolution for 20 loans. But again, I've seen these master signature cards and I've seen these master resolutions, and I'm still a little skeptical if we're good enough on our systems to be able to manage them well, and if the FDIC or NCUSIF from the credit union side came in and shut us down, would these signature cards be clear enough to tell who owned it and how it should be insured? So the resolution then becomes this pivotal document. It's at the center of everything. I, Joe, am the sole owner of Floral Enterprises. I, ABC Inc., am the sole owner of Floral Enterprises. And the outside government-issued documents and paperwork and agreements and whatever we can get, business paperwork, that sets up the authority that as a financial institution, that this business, this person, these people have the right to come in and open that account. And boy, does it get interesting when it's not people really coming in to open an